Well, the latest salvo in the economic crossfire between the U.S. and China is happening right now. China is sending back a second Boeing jet intended to have been used by a Chinese airline. According to flight data, the 737 MAX 8 just landed in Guam en route from Shanghai. You see Boeing down about 2.6% at the moment. President Trump's next move against China might affect anybody who orders from Chinese websites. Starting May 2nd, the tariff loophole called the de minimis exemption will be closed. Trump signed an executive order slapping a 120% tariff on all packages coming from China and Hong Kong and a postal fee of $100. Come June 1st, that fee jumps to $200. Currently, shipments worth less than $800 in value are exempt from that surcharge, but as of May 2nd, no more. As volleys in the U.S.-China trade war continue, the anxiety on Wall Street has devolved from trader trepidation to, a bit of market mayhem. I mean, look at what we're seeing today. Dow is down at the moment, 1,167 points. S&P down 3% or 160 points. NASDAQ down 528, 3.25%. New York Magazine this week capturing the New York Stock Exchange nightmare with this cover. The title, Wall Street's Rude Awakening. And you see a bunch of traders with their hair on fire, right? The quote on the screen right there is, "I did not think for 1 second he was going to go this crazy." That is from Spencer Hakimian, who manages the Toulouse Capital Hedge Fund, and the alleged he is President Trump. But not all money managers see it that way, including my next guest, Heyman Capital Management founder and CIO Kyle Bass. You do not have your hair on fire. Why not?
I don't have that much hair just to get started.
Yeah,
Good to
you
be
do.
here.
You got enough.
Look, this is a necessary. Look, everything that President Trump's doing on the tariff side, in my opinion, is necessary. I think that we are reasserting ourselves, especially against our number one, call it adversary, enemy, counterpart in China, whether it's on the cyber front, the trade front, or the military front. We've been at multiple wars with them since 2002. They've been winning the trade war for over 20 years, and now we're resetting it. And the de minimis exemption is companies like Shine and Temu. They export almost 4 million packages a day to the United States, and what happens is illicit substances, so all the precursor chemicals for fentanyl come through the mail, and they go undetected, and a number of counterfeit goods come undetected. And that de minimis exemption is exploited by the Chinese by cutting packages up into $800 or less increments. So we're just closing a loophole that the Chinese have been running through. And so does that have a detrimental effect on prices? Look, on the low end, yes, but the writing has been on the Great Wall since 2017, Liz. This has been a long time coming. And if you read the Director of National Intelligence Threat Assessment report to Congress every year, it lists China as the #1 threat to U.S. national security every single year. People on Wall Street need to start paying attention. They should have started paying attention long ago.
The de minimis issue here, May 2nd, as we explained, there will be this 120% tax. That feels like pretty much you will squeeze hard the Sheins of the world, the Temus, the Alipays. A lot of people in America love to buy cheap stuff. And in some cases, they can't afford to buy anything more expensive. How do you argue that this is really important to do? And arguably, too, you got fentanyl coming in some of those sub-$800 packages hidden in that way, correct?
Look, Liz, the state of Texas, since it began Operation Lone Star a little 4 years ago, has confiscated 360 million lethal doses of fentanyl just at the southern border between Texas and Mexico. That's enough to kill every single man, woman, and child in America. It is actually insane. And China can chase one case of COVID all over their country and shut it down and snuff it out. But you mean to tell me that they can't stop enough precursor chemicals from coming to the U.S. and Mexico to kill all of America? Like, give me a break. This is intentional. It's a reverse opium war. Talking about people buying cheap goods, Liz, look, if the national security of America was left up to the average Americans, or for that matter, up to Wall Street, we'd all be speaking Chinese tomorrow. This takes real leadership to reset the relationship. And when you get into a national security issue, sometimes it hurts. There is no easy button. And in this case, I'm afraid that we're headed towards a kinetic conflict with China. And the trade war is just one small piece of it. And the trade war is not Trump's, it's China's, and Trump's actually responding for the first time.
When we talk about whom it hurts, we've got Rich Lesser of Boston Consulting Group coming up for the CEO perspective of this, because there are already some small businesses on the verge of bankruptcy about that. I don't want to go there right now with you. What I do want to do is specifically ask you about the style and the method that President Trump has chosen. He and Xi Jinping of China have two totally different ways of attacking this issue. President Trump basically loaded his elephant gun and shot it at 60 different countries on April 2nd and saying, you're all tariffed. He's changed some of the tariffs since then, but the threat is still there because the 90 days was back, I think, April 9th, where he paused it. But on the other hand, Xi has jumped on a plane and gone to Malaysia, Cambodia, and Vietnam. And in fact, with Malaysia and the head there, Ibrahim, I believe, Anwar Ibrahim, he exchanged 31 different trade deals and constructs with him. So which side do you think works best? Because as of right now, we're still waiting to see even one official trade deal presented. Japan's officials from the Trade Department were here last week. We know Thursday South Korea's officials are coming. But we're waiting to hear from the administration that, OK, we've done it. Vietnam, South Korea, or whomever.
Yeah. OK, so first of all, since the pause, it's been 12 business days. We had Good Friday and Easter weekend, so you take 3 days out. Some people take Monday off. What I'm trying to make is, within the first weekend of announcing the tariffs, we had 72 countries call us. We had 15 memorandums of understanding written, and now we have trips, people coming. Liz, this doesn't happen overnight, and it's important for us to reset these relationships in a bilateral way. The president believes that multilateral deals give up too much, and that bilateral deals are worth entertaining and spending the time on. I think you'll see a number of key relationships sign improved trade agreements with the United States. It's just going to take, my view is it's going to take 90 days from April 9th, and you'll see a multitude of transactions happen. In the meantime, President Xi is appealing to the, call it, Asian sensibilities, if you've seen some of his press releases, saying, we in Asia need to unite against the West. And what we're doing is we're saying, we need our allies and the people that have our shared values and the way that we see the world to realign with us and work against China. Remember, we have a $30 trillion economy. We only import $450 billion a year from China. They only import $140 billion from us. So in a tit for tat, quote, trade war, we win every time because of the imbalance of what we import from them versus what they import from us. So what we have to do is hold the line. We need to get to a new place, which rebuilds our foundation, and then we can grow again. We can't continue to run $2 trillion deficits and have China taking advantage of us by IP theft, by everything that they do, exploring every nook and cranny of the asymmetries we advance to them in both trade and global geopolitical negotiations. We have to putting our foot down.
I just want to quickly touch on the bond market, because there was this belief that the Chinese and the Japanese were selling debt, U.S. Treasury debt, I'll just hand over fist. And we saw bond yields jump, the price of bonds fall. You're saying that that is a red herring, that China doesn't own that much of the U.S. debt. Somebody was selling, though, Kyle.
Yeah, so look, what happened in the bond market is very technical, and I know the people on Fox Business probably don't engage in any kind of regulatory arbitrage. But what was going on is a bunch of big funds were thinking that they were going to change the supplemental lending ratio or leverage ratio, which means more banks would be able to buy more treasuries. So people had a levered position on. When Trump introduced the tariffs, it caught them flat-footed and they blew out. And it happened all in 2 or 3 days, and that's done. And so now you have a scenario where the bond market in the United States that trades is a $29 trillion market. There's a $37 trillion market, but the $7+ trillion is intergovernmental between, call it, government agencies. So the bond market's $29 trillion. The US Fed owns about $6.7 trillion of those. The rest of the bond market trades $1 trillion a day, and the huge. Chinese own $750 billion. This kind of this Chinese strength, the sort of Damocles, them owning our debt and owning our markets, is a total fallacy. They could sell all of their debt 1 or 2 days and be gone, and that would be cutting off their nose to spite their face. Chinese 10 years trade at 160. Our 10 years trade at 440. We have the largest, deepest, most largest capital markets in the world, and we have the highest interest rates in the world, the developed world. So China would be stupid to sell. So their sales over time, even through COVID, they were a net seller. We issued $6 trillion new bonds in 2 years, and they didn't buy any bonds. So it's a red herring and it's complete BS.
Kyle, thank you very much for coming on. We're looking forward to one of these trade deals coming to fruition, but we know that there's no such thing as an average trade deal, but trade deals usually take anywhere from 12 to 18 months. We shall see if one comes sooner. Thank you so much for joining us.
It'll come sooner. It'll come sooner.
Okay.